coming up.
See the swell picking up, started to get more rough.
The change just happened really quickly.
Hell in paradise.
Everything went completely dark. I was trapped under the flipped boat, screaming like crazy, "Where is my daughter?"
The tour that turned to tragedy. One Australian dead, others injured.
Tell me what happened with the Sea Dragon 2?
But buck passing in Bali means no one's taking the blame.
Australians go to Bali all the time. It's not safe.
Hello and welcome to Extra Minutes, the 60 Minutes podcast. I'm Amelia Adams and we are a long way from home with our excellent producer, Natalie Clancy, coming to everyone from Bali today.
All the way from sunny, beautiful Bali.
It's been quite an adventure. For those who don't know, a few months ago, a boat capsized, a tourism boat here off the mainland, and an Australian woman, Anna Blight from Melbourne, was killed. We've spent a few weeks interviewing the survivors of that boating tragedy. And of course, the next step for us was to come here and to effectively retrace their steps on land and at sea and get to the bottom of what happened on that boat, why it capsized, how she died, and who, if anyone, will be held accountable. And boy, it hasn't been easy logistically, has it?
Definitely not. I guess there's sort of two elements to it. One is just physically getting around in a place like Bali, going to Nusa Penida, the island that's sort of the closest area of land to where the boat capsized. But then also the logistics of trying to convince some of the people who we had to talk to talk to us when they'd rather sort of potentially keep this quiet.
Well, that's right. And the tour boat was called the Sea Dragon 2. As we discovered when we got here, they have changed its name.
Unsurprisingly, perhaps.
Not great marketing for them, but it took us a bit to track down the company itself. We sort of found ourselves in the back streets of Denpasar in a dog shelter of all places, trying to convince one of the company senior management to sit down and talk to us about what happened that day.
I wasn't sure too, when we rolled up, we sort of ran into him at the front gate and he was chatty, and then he said he was going to take something off the stove and he'd come back.
Yeah, I didn't think he was coming back.
I did not think he was coming back. But sure enough, 30 seconds later, he invited us in.
He did, and obviously he didn't speak English. We had a great translator there. And he was Another Amelia, and he was quite open to our questioning, which was basically, you know, what happened and who takes responsibility. For me, this has been the most difficult thing. This is something all of the survivors have put to us. Whose fault was it? Will anyone be held responsible? And it's been a real blame game ever since we arrived, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's probably because, I don't know, I feel like it might be because tourism is such a big part of the economy here.
Of course.
If the boat company or the tour operator puts their hand up and says it was our fault, their business is just going to go to ground. So they're quite motivated to blame each other. When at the end of the day, potentially anyone who was employed on that boat, tour operator, captain, crew, could have maybe raised a red flag when they saw a storm ahead.
So we know from passengers that it was a calm morning when they boarded and the weather turned pretty quickly. We know from other tour operators we've spoken to that there was a huge storm brewing, and in fact a lot of them made that decision, didn't they, to turn back, that it was too dangerous. But for whatever reason, the Sea Dragon crew, the Sea Dragon tourism operator, and we should talk about his perspective in a moment, but really the captain, I would always think, you know, the buck stops with the captain, decided to keep on going.
And you would think that if the captain of a boat says, I'm not going there, put my foot down, no one's going to overrule him. It's
about, for people who don't know, 45 minutes or an hour off Denpasar in a boat to get to Nusa Penida, which is a beautiful, I mean, it's sparkling blue waters, clean beaches, much cleaner than here on the mainland.
Very popular for snorkelling.
Yeah, and the passengers we spoke to were keen to see the manta rays and the reef and all of that. The waves were enormous, 4 to 5 metres, and the captain kept going.
And I don't know about you, but we went out there yesterday on a beautiful day, near perfect conditions, and it was still a gnarly boat ride. And then when we got there, we'd obviously spent weeks hearing these survivors' stories and they're all terrified. But it really sort of hit me just how terrifying, because you're at the bottom of these 400-metre cliffs. The waves were big yesterday, and that was a best-case scenario.
Yeah. And, you know, for people who the entire ordeal is just unbelievable, and people were seeing the story. Not only was it the boat capsizing, realising someone was missing and a blight who was killed. They then had to wait to get picked up by a tourist boat. There was no official rescue. They then got dropped on a beach that we went to.
But they had to swim to because the boat couldn't actually approach the beach.
When they get to the beach, it's actually at the bottom of an enormous 400-metre cliff, which you're meant to walk up. I mean, this went on and on and on, and the details of that are in our story. But we did get to speak to who I would have thought was sort of the ultimate authority here, the police chief in charge of the investigation on the island of Nusa Penida.
What did you make of what he had to say?
He was very open and confident. I am not convinced that there are no stones left unturned. He has decided that, as he told us, this was a freak of nature. This was a weather incident, that a log got stuck in the propeller and it was big waves. There was nothing the captain could do. There was nothing the tour operator could have done, nothing the boat company could have done. I think from the people that we've spoken to, passengers on the boat, many of whom the police have not interviewed.
That's right.
And also other tour operators, I think we've been told that there is something they could have done. They could have turned back.
Absolutely. And I think it's hard for them to claim that it is a comprehensive, thorough police investigation when there's a stack of eyewitnesses on that boat who they haven't bothered to speak to.
Yeah. And we did push him on this point. You know, a woman has died. Her family don't really have answers. The other survivors, the survivors that we've spoken to, want answers. They want to know what happened, and they want to know it won't happen again. Because no tourist gets on one of these boats and they go, you know, in their hundreds.
And we saw them every morning
Yep.
around the corner from here at the beach.
Yep.
Every morning, boatloads of tourists heading out for the same snorkelling adventure.
And so many of them are Australian.
Yes.
So they want to ensure that that won't happen again. I put that to the police chief, and I don't feel, when I said to him, you know, have you made any changes? Would you be enforcing safety briefings, life jackets, all the things that didn't happen on that day? He didn't commit to that.
No, and I actually found it quite interesting that he sort of put the responsibility onto the tourists.
Didn't he?
And that's probably a takeaway for the story, that if you are going to come here and do one of these tours, you really have to take your safety into your own hands.
Yeah.
And if you want to know there's a life jacket on board, best thing to do is probably take your own.
One of the most disturbing survival stories, I think, is the family that we interviewed from Estonia, who had a little 7-year-old. Their daughter, it was actually a family trip for her birthday, and as a special treat, they wanted to take her out snorkelling to see the manta rays. They researched, like a lot of passengers we've spoken to, really thoroughly, safety records, different companies. They chose Sea Dragon 2 because it was quite expensive, which you would think it's not a cheap, dodgy operator.
Excellent.
Excellent reviews. She emailed with them weeks prior confirming you have got life jackets for children and this is a safe boat for children. When they got there that day, they've all said to us there was no safety briefing, there was no life jackets handed out. And that mother, Lisa, after asking, she says 5 times, saw a small child's life jacket, and she said in desperation, she just went and grabbed it herself. She put it on her daughter, and we know now that's the only reason Alexandra lived.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And her story is terrifying. I mean, this 7-year-old trapped under the boat, as many were, for, what'd she say, nearly half an hour, having to swim out in those conditions. I mean, having been there just yesterday, I can't imagine doing it as an adult.
And even just yesterday, one of our crew members asked one of the boat crew, can you swim around here? And a local man who obviously takes his boat there every day did not hesitate to say, no, you cannot swim here.
Too dangerous.
Too dangerous. So being flung into that ocean in those conditions with a boat capsizing would be terrifying.
Yeah. There's a couple of things at play here because there is obviously the company that owns the boat, as we've discussed, but then there's the tour operators. So you have boats owned by companies and tour companies run them. Tour companies provide the guides and they provide
the snorkelling equipment,
all of that, and they market it as well. And we did track down, with some difficulty, the man who runs the tour company responsible for Sea Dragon 2, and he really didn't want to talk to us, but in the end he did, and I thought what he had to say was quite interesting.
So did I, and I could sort of understand his perspective as well. He obviously very worried about the impact on his business, but the fact is this tragedy did happen on one of his tours. So I think he realised in the end that he was better off to get his point of view across than to look like he had something to hide, because I think he was genuinely affected by it.
Yeah.
but I guess also played the blame game a little bit.
Well, that's right. I mean, he says it is absolutely the boat company's responsibility. And in fact, he said the Coast Guard decides if the weather's okay every day for the boats to go out. So he's saying it's the Coast Guard's call.
The Coast Guard is probably only going to stop boats going out if there's some sort of extreme weather event.
Right.
And on a day-to-day basis, you would assume it's the captain.
Of course.
As in on that day, I think it's clear that the Coast Guard didn't ban vessels from going to sea.
No, that's right. But so many of them decided it's not safe.
Decided it wasn't worth the risk.
Yeah.
And this captain of the Sea Dragon 2 went ahead anyway.
A couple of different stories on what's happened to that captain as well. The owner of the Sea Dragon told us that he's still working with them and he's had no consequences and he's taking those boats out every day.
And then the tour operator said that after this tragedy happened, he told the boat company, I don't want to see that captain ever again. He's not to work with us. So who knows where he is?
Who knows? And I have found this, working in Indonesia in the past on news stories. There's often a lot of crossed stories, and at the end of the day, I think the police chief has decided this is his conclusion. It was a freak accident. He blames Mother Nature, and therefore no one will be held accountable. Now, whether that's easy for him to just say, case closed, whether that brings any comfort to the family of Anna Bligh or any of the survivors, he's certainly not budging from that finding, is he?
No, not at all. And I think too that maybe the takeaway that some of these survivors would put forward, having gone through this, is they all love Bali.
Yes.
They hold nothing against Bali. They had a great time here until this happened. And so I think they're conscious. They don't want to discourage people from coming here, but they would, I think, tell people to be personally responsible for their own safety, because even the investigation that's followed this incident hasn't really resulted in any change.
No.
And so if you're going to do one of these tours, you're better off doing everything you can to try and keep yourself safe and not relying on the systems here.
Put your life jacket on. Be really careful with the company you choose. Although a lot of these passengers were.
And I think that's the other thing that will sort of strike a chord with a lot of people. These passengers weren't sort of reckless Bali tourists. You often hear stories about someone doing something stupid in Bali and it's no surprise they got hurt. These were sensible, responsible families who did their research and still ended up in this scenario.
Yeah. And, for many of them, it's been a very, very long and tough recovery. They're still dealing with the trauma of it. It was a terrifying, terrifying day. Physical injuries as well, as people see in the story. Burns from fuel, from battery acid. The 7-year-old girl had inhaled that. She was vomiting blood at one point.
Some of those photos I thought were really horrific.
Yeah. So it is a warning story, but as you say, so many Australians come here. It's a beautiful place. It's a wonderful tourist place. We've had some good moments.
Absolutely we have.
But it's certainly a cautionary tale, I think, for anyone considering taking one of those tours.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, Nat, thank you. It's been a huge production and logistical exercise.
With the assistance of our crew, Chick and Jack.
Fantastic crew, as
Just here
always.
off camera.
Geez, they've lugged a lot of gear across boats and wharves and ferries and...
all sorts of transportation.
Yeah.
And we haven't lost a thing, I don't think.
Yet.
No, yet.
And I think we've gotten to the bottom of it as much as we can.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a really interesting story for people to see what went wrong, what the authorities are saying and doing here. And I hope it does bring some sort of closure or answers at least, especially for the family of Anna Bligh.
Me too.
Yeah. And of course, if you missed our story, you can catch up on 9 Now and on our YouTube channel.